I'm Adrienne Pedersen. Today on Upfront, COVID in the classroom.
The issue itself has just become way too political, and we need to remove politics from it.
Are schools caught in the middle between parents who want full mitigation efforts and those who are fiercely against face masks? I'll ask State DPI Superintendent Dr. Jill Underly. Then the governor's People's Maps Commission releases its version of new maps. We'll take a look at the coming battle over redistricting. And a long shot for governor, Republican candidate Jonathan Wichmann, on how he beats better known and better funded competitors.
Taking on the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Upfront with your host, Adrienne Pedersen.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. We begin today with COVID-19 racing through some Wisconsin schools and efforts to get it under control. Several Milwaukee public schools have moved to virtual learning because of COVID. MPS also is requiring all teachers and staff to get vaccinated by November 1st. The Madison School District is doing the same. Schools are also caught between parents who want students masked and full COVID mitigation measures and parents who want no masks at all. A lot going on in our schools. We're talking about all of this today with State Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Jill Underly. Dr. Underly, thank you for your time today. And, you just heard that there. We've been talking about these MPS schools who have gone back to virtual learning. And I'm interested with cases rising, hearing about the Delta variant. Is there sort of a threshold in which you think schools need to be closed?
There's always been thresholds when we look at other kinds of viruses like the flu or rotavirus. I was a superintendent of a school district not long ago. And when we had outbreaks, for flu or stomach flu or whatnot, county health always contacted us and we went through mitigation measures, including closing the school and cleaning. And I don't feel that COVID should be any different.
And so what would kind of that threshold be? Because we hear about cases now in school, but it's tough to put it into perspective in terms of how many are too many.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's going to vary. Every school is a little bit different, when we look at size or we look at square footage. And I really feel that this is a lane that county health or public health should be working on with their school districts.
And in every school district, there's really an ongoing conversation right now about masks or no masks, what COVID mitigation efforts are appropriate. You've got parents, teachers, students on both sides of the debate. What is your messaging to schools that are caught in the middle of this?
Yeah, my message to schools is hang in there. I mean, the issue itself has just become way too political, and we need to remove politics from it. And we also need to think about when we take politics out of it, we take the emotion out of it as well. And so when you take the emotion out of it, you could really focus on what really matters. And that's what the experts tell us. There's a quick story I just want to share. It makes me think about, how we could relate to this when we take politics out of a health situation. Think about something like a peanut allergy. When a child is allergic to peanuts, we take the necessary precautions in our schools, right? And schools have policies on how to manage peanut allergies. We go peanut free in our lunchrooms, and we have policies on school snacks and treats brought from home. And we don't have people coming to school board meetings and arguing about the science of peanut allergies. We accept it's necessary to take precautions to protect all kids and staff. And that's what we need to do. I mean, we have to take the emotion out of some of these mitigation measures and follow the science and do what we need to do to protect kids and staff.
Well, there's already now COVID-19 vaccination mandates for Madison and Milwaukee schools. There's a teacher shortage. Just looking at the DPI website, it says on there that there is a teacher shortage in Wisconsin right now. What is putting a mandate like this in place going to do to this shortage?
Well, I reflect on when I was a superintendent just a year ago, and we had a shortage because there were people who, at the time we didn't have the vaccine. I have to put that out there. And people were worried that, maybe they had underlying health conditions themselves or they had family members and they didn't want to be able, they didn't want to expose themselves to that. I support strong mitigation measures and, layered mitigation, masking, vaccines, among the other things like, hygiene and whatnot. And if a local school board feels that that's the process they want to implement, I would support that school board.
Do you think we could come to a real problem, though, with not having enough teachers in this state because of the vaccine mandates?
I don't know if the vaccine mandate would cause that. I think we've had the teacher shortage problem prior to COVID. You look at the other things that have led to why teachers are not going into the profession. Just look at the environment we're in right now. You know, teachers are put in the middle of a lot of things that have been outside of their control. There's also other things like low pay, for example, that are preventing people from going into teaching. How the profession itself has been deprofessionalized or unprofessionalized over the past 10 years. There's a lot of other factors at play than COVID.
And when it comes to critical race theory, the bill that the Assembly passed with that, it doesn't mention critical race theory, but we talked all about this on the show last weekend. Have you talked to the governor on if he'll veto this?
I haven't talked to him specifically, but the thing about this bill is that it's incredibly troubling because of the amendment that was placed in, or the addendum that was placed into the bill that talks about certain terms and concepts that would violate, you know, those certain terms and concepts. There's a list of all the things that, you know, we couldn't say or teach, and that itself violates law. So,
and what are some examples of those things?
Some of the things that were like inclusivity education, or there were things like, I think the word even equity was one of the words that was, I don't have the list right in front of me, but just kind of going through it. I mean, I think about it, if you were to ban certain words, I mean, this is really getting into micromanaging our curriculum, but it's also that if you ban certain words, we're just going to come up with different words to replace it. It's really nonsensical. And I feel like we don't want to inhibit free discourse of ideas in our classrooms.
And when I had reached out to the Department of Public Instruction to ask in how many K through 12 public schools critical race theory is being taught, they responded and said that DPI does not track curriculum. It's a local thing, like you were talking about. But to your knowledge, do any schools teach this in the state of Wisconsin? They're not teaching it in the way that I think people in Wisconsin who claim our school districts are teaching it. Critical race theory is taught in colleges and specifically in law as a legal framework. We're not teaching it in that particular way. We're teaching about racism perhaps, and we're teaching about minority history and minority rights as part of American history in our schools, and that's what we're teaching. Some Republicans want to make the state superintendent job appointed instead of elected. What's your take on that?
The Wisconsin Constitution provides the Department of Public Instruction the authority and space to be independent, and I feel that's what Wisconsin citizens want. It's nonpartisan because politics has been so part of Wisconsin education lately. We have to take ourselves out of that. We have, the department being independent has served Wisconsin well for nearly 2 centuries. And it's our job at DPI to administer public education in the state. And that's why, we're supposed to lead on issues around public education. And again, that's why it's independent. So I really feel that the state of Wisconsin would not support that.
Okay, Dr. Jill Underly, State Superintendent, we're certainly wishing the best for our students and teachers. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Adrienne.
Coming up, the battle over redistricting, why it matters to voters. And later, our Matt Smith at Fort McCoy. He takes a look at efforts to resettle Afghan refugees in Wisconsin and beyond.